Thank you, sir. In the next 30 minutes, I am going to cover the topic on secondary glaucomas. Secondary glaucomas is a very vast subject, and each and every entity is a big topic by itself. But anyway, I just will give you an overview of secondary glaucoma. And most of the time, it is a final common pathway of several eye or ocular diseases, pathology that impairing the trabecular meshwork outflow, and that leads to elevated intraocular pressure and visual loss. It can be temporary or permanent, or it can be open angle or angle closure. And also it can be unilateral or bilateral, and we'll see one by one. And relatively it's less prevalent than primary glaucomas like open angle or angle closure. And the greater risk of blindness is the secondary glaucoma. The risk of blindness is very high because it is most of the time it is very, very resistant to conventional treatment. And also the visual loss from primary eye diseases, and here there is a multifactorial in nature most of the time. So the visual loss will be more. And also we need a multidisciplinary approach to the management. There are only few prevalent studies to find out the incidence of this type of glaucoma, and also there is no definite criteria to diagnose this because this diversity of this one. And the mean prevalence, according to Quigley, has given good statistics about the worldwide glaucoma. So mainly it's 0.44%, plus or minus 0.36, and also in worldwide there are about 6 million people with burden of secondary glaucoma. And usually it is caused by, as he mentioned, numerous ocular and systemic diseases, and intraocular pressure is very difficult to control. So that's why early recognition is very much essential to prevent further visual loss. And primary, and also you have to most of the time it is iatrogenic. 40% of the secondary glaucomas are iatrogenic, either post-surgical or medical treatment. So most of the time if you diagnose them early and institute the treatment, you can prevent further loss of vision. And this is just a cohort study in our hospital and PGH Chandigarh. About 80 to 20% of the patients of those comes to our clinic are having secondary glaucoma, and predominant causes are the post-surgical glaucomas and lens-induced glaucoma and some of the drug-induced glaucomas. The common causes for the secondary glaucomas, if you take in most of the time, what we see normally in our clinic is the post-surgical, that's aphakic and pseudophakic glaucoma. Then glaucoma following vitreoretinal surgery, and the third one is the traumatic glaucoma, which we see most of the time, day-to-day occurrence, and some of the corneal pathologies, corneal infections and trauma also, and steroid induced nowadays is very, very common, and of course lens induced is another important thing with the neovascular glaucoma. So coming to the pseudo-exfoliation and pigmented glaucoma, both are it's not very rare, we see every day, and pseudo-exfoliation is very common in our country. It's about the glaucoma, pseudo-exfoliation glaucoma, you can see in about 30 to 40% of the cases with the pseudo-exfoliation syndrome. Here, mainly the deposition of the exfoliative material at the pupillary margin, at the angle, and at the corneal endothelium. This is little different from primary open angle glaucoma because it's highly little resistant to treatment, medical treatment. So most of it may require surgery. And also other associated ocular morbidity like the deposition of the material over the zonules may cause zonular weakness, and during surgery we have to be very, very careful, and also the people most of the time it will be rigid and very difficult to dilate, and also when you go for a combined surgery we should be very careful. And another important glaucoma is the pigmented glaucoma, is a secondary open angle glaucoma, and usually is common in younger individuals, and the main cause for the glaucoma is the deposition of the pigments at the antechamber angle. And here one of the important mechanism is the reverse pupillary block, that's called Campbell's, Campbell's theory. So some people, most of the people, they will do a laser iodectomy because the main mechanism here you see this variation in the pressure gradient between anterior and posterior chamber. The anterior chamber pressure is more when compared to the posterior chamber. That's why you will have a peripheral convexity of the iris posteriorly. So once you do a PI, the pressure is equalized and the iris will become flat. There is no more rubbing of the iris, the zone of the lens. So that's why you can treat. And another thing also is glaucoma management also is highly like a pseudo-exposition glaucoma, but here the chamber will be very deep, and when you do a trabeculectomy or combined surgery, we should be little more careful because of the myopia and other related comorbidity. The second important group of glaucoma, secondary glaucoma, is lens-induced glaucoma. All of you know very well. There is the phacolytic glaucoma, a hypermature cataract. Once it leaks the lens protein through its weakest posterior capsule, it will elicit very severe uveitis, anterior uveitis, and that causes the very high intraocular pressure and pain, etc. And the main treatment is you have to treat them medically with the steroids and anti-glaucoma with the cycloplegics and remove the lens. And usually the visual prognosis will be very, very good. And phacomorphic is one of the important secondary angle closure glaucoma. Still we see in most of the time. And here also because the lens swells because of the imbibition of the fluid, and they will cause secondary angle closure. So you reduce the pressure with hyperosmotics and then remove the lens, and even phaco will give you a very good result in phacomorphic glaucoma. Then third group is the this ectopia lentis. This also is one of the important things as a postgraduates. You should know about all the causes of ectopia lentis, starting from ectopia lentis, et pupillae, simple ectopia lentis, Marfan syndrome, homocystinuria, Weil-Marcesani, aniridia. There are plenty of causes, sulfate oxide. So many causes are there in the book, but common form of this one is the Marfan syndrome. We should not miss because we have large systemic features like tall and slender personality with long finger, hyper-extensible joints and wrist sign, thumb sign, etc. systemically, and ocular features will have myopia, and also you will have ectopic lentis iris and peripheral retinal degeneration. All these things we can get. And management, that glaucoma is multifactorial here. It can be pre-existing this mesodermal tissues in the angle, or the subluxated or dislocated lens may block the pupil, or it may push the iris forwards, causing the angle closure glaucoma, or sometimes a vitreous knuckle in the pupil may cause pupillary block and cause a secondary glaucoma. And treatment also is very, very critical in this case. So most of the time, medical management and optical correction is very well advised than surgical removal. And then the Weil-Marcesani syndrome, there's a microspherophakia is again another entity where the lens is spherical in nature instead of a biconvex one. And here the lens may move here from antechamber to posterior chamber. Most of the time the glaucoma is due to pupillary block glaucoma. The lens may get incarcerated in the pupil, or it can block the pupil, or the lens may dislocate into anterior chamber. So many things can happen. And also we have to the patient usually they will be myopic because of the spherophakic, and the PI sometimes may help. Suppose there is a repeated dislocation to anterior chamber, we have to remove the lens with the anterior vitrectomy. And aniridia is another entity, is not rare, and usually the glaucoma is present in 20 to 40% of the cases. And the term aniridia itself is a misnomer because you will see some rudimentary iris in the angle. Usually the mechanism of glaucoma is the angle closure mechanism. In this case, as Gita pointed out, you will have a peripheral limb stem cell deficiency and macular hyperplasia. Some children, they will have nystagmus and also coloboma of the lens, and very highly refractory to treatment. And one of the another important thing is we have to look for the Wilms tumor in cases with aniridia. Another group of diseases, ICE syndrome. Here there are three important entities. One is essential iris atrophy, then iris nevus syndrome, and also the Chandler syndrome. This mostly they are associated with corneal and endothelial as well as iris changes. Usually they are unilateral and you will have a middle-aged involvement. And females are more commonly affected than the males. And the angle closure is the commonest mechanism for rise in intraocular pressure in these cases. And recently viral etiology has been described. Usually the patient present with acute rise of intraocular pressure or history of halos in these cases. If you see, examine the eye, other eye will be completely normal, and this eye they will have iris atrophy and polychoria and correctopia and all these things you can see, and gonium most of the time the angle will be open. Medical treatment is the commonest mode, but is highly refractory to medical treatment. So we can go for filtering surgery with mitomycin, and the chance of failure also is very high in this case because of the formation of some endothelial-like membrane, which may block the ostium, and later on you may have to do some laser treatment to open up the ostium. And then the other group is the phacomatoses. Common phacomatoses that cause rise in intraocular pressure is the Sturge-Weber syndrome, the neurofibromatosis, and the oculodermal melanosis of Vota. And the important thing in Sturge-Weber syndrome is whenever there is a first division of the trigeminal nerve gets involved, that's the ophthalmic division of the trigeminal involved, this upper lid hemangioma, and also you will have a very red, starry looking eye with prominent congenital vessels. So here, suppose a child develops glaucoma within the first 3 years of life, you will have what you call as the secondary ophthalmos. You will have a ophthalmic eye, and you will have a severe congested eye and corneal edema, etc. Later, suppose the child develops after 3 years of age, you will not have this ophthalmos. It is highly refractory to treatments. The main mechanism of glaucoma here, the causes are, one thing is the rise to episcleral venous pressure, and of course the other causes are the presence of any mesodermal tissues in the angle, and also they say one more theory, there is because of the hemangioma there is a hypersecretion of the ciliary processes, what you call as the plethoric glaucoma. And management, medical treatment is highly refractory to medical treatment. So surgery is the one thing. You have to be very careful about the complications, both intraoperative and postoperative. The severe bleeding and the supraocular hemorrhage, we have to think in intraoperatively, and postoperatively the failure and tenon cyst and all these things. So we have to use liberal use of antimetabolites and good control of bleeding, and also good control of intraocular pressure during surgery. You have to give hyperosmotic and use of prophylactic posterior sclerostomy to prevent supraocular hemorrhage, etc. We should take care. The other thing is the plexiform neurofibromatosis, especially if it is in the one eye, as the upper eyelid is involved, then the child may go for secondary glaucoma due to same reason of rise episcleral venous pressure. Sometimes it may be associated with the atrophy and UVA syndrome. And another one is the melanosis of Vota. You say there is extensive pigmentation of the conjunctiva, cornea, and iris and the angle. If you see the angle, you will not be able to appreciate any of the structures in the angle. It's totally severely pigmented. It's called as the melanocytic glaucoma. So here also we have to go for surgery, and usually it will give you a good result following surgery. The another important group, the major group of secondary glaucoma, is the glaucoma associated with ocular surgery, following cataract surgery, following anti-glaucoma surgery, and penetrating keratoplasty, and retinal surgeries like scleral buckling, vitrectomy, expansal cases, silicone oil, etc., intraocular foreign body removal, and all other laser procedures. So coming to the glaucoma following cataract surgery, Of course, now with the invent of finding microscopical instrumentation and other gadgets in cataract surgery, the incidence of the pseudophakic and aphakic glaucoma has come down drastically. But still, we come across some form of glaucoma in pseudophakia. It can be open angle or angle closure, or it can be acute one, or it can be a very late presentation. And also, it depends upon the type of surgery also. What type of surgery we have done, whether extracapsular or SSES or ECCE, or type of IOL. Of course, nowadays, most of the time we do a PCIOL, but previously people, they were doing different types of IOL, like anti-chamber lenses, iris clip lenses, and etc. And usually it's unilateral. Some people rarely they will the chance of getting glaucoma, the same complication can happen in the other eye. So when you operate a patient with pseudophakic glaucoma, when you operate the other eye, you have to be very, very careful. And also most of the time, 90% of the cases will have a complicated cataract surgery in the sense whether PC rupture or vitreous loss or nucleus loss, all these things. And IOL related causes for rise in intraocular pressure is about 37%. And so many mechanisms have been put forward to explain the post-cataract surgery intraocular pressure elevation. And one is the inflammatory factors, because most of the time it can be idiopathic. Suppose if you would have done a good surgery in the table, but next day if you see there will be severe kaolin edema and your pressure may be 30-40. So in that case, it's mainly an idiopathic, maybe a breakdown of the blood aqueous barrier, or maybe too much of manipulation, or too much of use of viscoelastic, and all these things will cause a rise in intraocular pressure. And with the conservative treatment, we can very well revert back the other thing is the mechanical factors. If the implant is too large or too small, or if there is an imperfect implant edges, or pressure over the angle suches. Suppose if you are doing an anti-chamber lens, suppose if you are not taken a correct measurement, then the loop of the lens may press against the angle structure, and the constant pressure may go to lead to pressure necrosis of the iris, ischemia, new vessels, bleeding, and all these things can happen. And also a pupillary block is another common important thing in anti-chamber lens, etc. And the surgical factor, incomplete cortical aspiration or insufficient evacuation of the viscoelastic agent, and excessive surgical trauma, poor quality IOL, etc. are all the important causes for the secondary rise in intraocular pressure. Then of course hyphema, all of you know very well how it causes a rise in intraocular pressure and management. And iritis, post-op iritis, especially in cases with pseudo-exfoliation or in traumatic cataract or in uveitic cataract, this is more common. Or those who had long-term anti-glaucoma medications, we have to be very careful. It can be mild, moderate or severe. Depending upon the situation, we have to institute the treatment. The causes are multifactorial, mainly blockage of the trabecular mesh by the inflammatory cells, fibrinous aqueous and trabeculitis, Seneca, etc. And UJ syndrome, nowadays we are not seeing much of this problem. About 2 decades ago, when anti-chamber lens was so popular, at that time we have seen many cases of this problem. But nowadays very rare. But as a PG, you should know what is UJ syndrome. That is uveitis, glaucoma and hyphema. And this is usually weeks or months after the surgery, because as I mentioned already, if you put oversized IOL, they will cause pressure necrosis, all these things, ischemia, uveitis, and then glaucoma and hyphema. And also mainly the treatment is you have to remove the lens and then treat the cause. Vitreous in AC is another cause. Lens particle glaucoma is also not that uncommon. Suppose especially when you do e-learning surgery, if the pupil is very small, you are likely to leave behind the cortical material behind the iris. So later, after 1 or 2 days, the cortex may come to the pupillary area and will produce so much of uveitis as well as rise in intraocular pressure. Simple just AC was is enough to control this problem. And of course, pupillary block, pseudophakic pupillary block is not uncommon. Even with phaco, sometimes we used to get this type of ring synechiae, the iris bombay, etc. So, simple initially you have to give loaded with the steroids and anti-glaucoma medication, then do a laser PA, or you can just release the synechiae from the anti-surface of the lens, so that you can completely revert the situation to normal. And it's more common with the ACIOL like this. Suppose if you are not done a proper this peripheral iridectomy, you can get what you call as the internal iris prolapse on either side of the intraocular lens. So just by putting a laser iridotomy on either side, you can easily cure this problem. And iris cyst is not that uncommon. We come across many cases of following pseudophakia. Depending upon the situation, you can treat the cause. You can just remove the cyst, or you can just puncture with the small cyst, you can puncture with the YAG laser, etc. Then second important anti-glaucoma, this glaucoma following intraocular surgery is the malignant glaucoma, especially when you do surgery for angle closure, acute angle closure or chronic angle closure, the chance of malignant glaucoma is very high. It is otherwise called as the ciliary block glaucoma. It's mainly as why it is malignant, it is highly refractory to conventional treatment, and there is a retrovitreal and paravitreal and intravitreal accumulation of the aqueous humor. And also there is a junction of the ciliary, there is a lens equator and ciliary processes in the anterior side, they block the circulation of the aqueous humor from posterior chamber to anterior chamber. So you will have a shallow anterior chamber with the patent PI. PI should be patent. So other situations, what things we can get malignant glaucoma even with cataract surgery, or even with after laser iridotomy, you can get malignant glaucoma. And differential diagnosis is mainly pupillary block glaucoma, and is mainly pupillary block glaucoma, and presence of a PA is most of the time it will differentiate malignant glaucoma with pupillary block glaucoma. Treatment is usually a phakic and pseudophakic malignant glaucoma. Both are different. A phakic malignant glaucoma, especially following angle closure glaucoma surgery, in medical treatment in early cases will give a good result, especially with hyperosmotics or anti-glaucoma beta blockers. And you have to dilate the pupil very well, especially you have to give a cycloplegic so that the pupil ciliary ring will enlarge, and it will keep the zonules very tight, and the lens will become very flat, so that you can have the formed chamber all the time. So sometimes you have to give for about months together this comatropine or atropine with other anti-glaucoma medications. And if it is not controlled, then you have to go for surgical treatment. There are various surgical modalities have been described to control intraocular pressure in malignant glaucoma, but most of the time the results are not that satisfactory. And laser, of course, in cases with pseudophakic malignant glaucoma, you can do transpupillary coagulation of the ciliary processes, or you can do cyclophotocoagulation, or you can just rupture the anterior hyaloid face with the YAG laser so that you can relieve the situation. And penetrating keratoplasty is again another thing, glaucoma following PKP, and it's one of the most serious complications, and also the second leading cause of the graft failure after graft rejection. And usually it depends upon the how the donor size is. If size is small or more, also that also one of the things that will determine the occurrence of the secondary glaucoma, and also the suture bite is also matters. And there are so many reports have been in the article, and early and late is about 31 and 23% respectively. And so the risk factors where you have to be very careful is especially in myopia, aphakia, you have to be very careful. You have to do a good vitrectomy and repeat penetrating keratoplasty. Another thing where you have glaucoma is more common. And when you combine with other procedures like cataract extraction or with the IOL implantation, then the chance of rise in intraocular pressure is more common. And the early postoperative clinical, usually it may be due to uveitis and hemorrhage and pupillary block. And another important thing, as already pointed out, steroid-induced glaucoma is, we have to be very careful when the patient is on long-term steroids. It will produce a rise in intraocular pressure, especially in steroid responders. Another possible mechanism for this glaucoma is the collapse of the trabecular meshwork and the compression of the antechamber angle is another possible mechanism. And then epithelial downgrowth and peripheral anti-Seneca formation. So all these things are very, very important when you examine a case of penetrating keratoplasty. Then retinal surgeries, especially scleral buckling, a broad buckle, a tight buckle, especially if you put a tight buckle, a broad buckle may compress on the emissary veins. And tight buckle, usually they will produce what you call as a hourglass appearance of the eye. And antechamber ischemia is very common, and it will produce a shallow chamber and all these things. So you have to be very careful. And also string syndrome, as this tight buckle will produce a string syndrome. So you have to release the pressure of the buckle and you have to treat the cause. Then silicon oil is another important cause for the secondary glaucoma. Now we see lot of cases of silicon oil induced glaucoma. You know very well it will produce an inverse hypopyon, and you have to do a prophylactic iridotomy in the superior iris, not in the inferior iris. And of course, extranasal gas is also one of the cause for the glaucoma. Then vitreous surgery, especially when you do a vitrectomy for diabetic vitreous hemorrhage, the chance of post-vitrectomy neovascular glaucoma is very common, what you call as the oxygen steal syndrome, because of the loss of the barrier of the vitreous. The antechamber will become ischemic and you will have a new vessel formation and glaucoma. And traumatic glaucoma is a major cause for the blindness and visual disability. And is a major cause of glaucoma in about less than 20 years of age. And predominantly males are more involved than the females. And usually the causes are multifactorial. In the initial stage, it's very difficult to pinpoint the cause for the glaucoma. And usually the post-injury and the firecracker and all these things can happen. Hyphema is one of the important causes for the rise in intraocular pressure in its early stage. So depending upon the nature of blood, intraocular pressure and the duration, we have to either medically conservatively treat or we have to wash the blood out. And the other causes are the lens-related glaucoma, lens subluxation and lens pseudophakic, traumatic indomuscle lens. We have to treat the underlying cause. And it's something like that, we have to remove the lens and put the intraocular lens. The important cause for the traumatic glaucoma, especially with blunt injury, is the angle recession glaucoma. Here, immediate phase, you will not get any rise in intraocular pressure, but usually it will take about 3 months. Even after 30 years, you can get to traumatic angle recession. So, any patient with the traumatic angle recession, they have to come for lifelong follow-up. Usually, the cause is mainly the formation of a thick membrane at the area of angle recession. And angle recession is nothing but the splitting of the circular and longitudinal fibers of the ciliary muscle. And highly refractory to medical treatment, and most of the time it may need surgery if the intraocular pressure is not controlled with medical. Then of course, treating intraocular foreign body, the siderosis is most common. You will have a siderotic glaucoma, deposit of the hemosiderin pigment in the angle, and they will produce, and also damage to the trabecular meshwork and this one. And the other corneal pathology, corneal ulcer, perforated corneal ulcer, secondary angle cruciate glaucoma is not uncommon. Chemical injury, you can get glaucoma because of the loss of limbal vessels. You will have, there is necrosis of the trabecular meshwork, and all these things produce the very high intraocular pressure. Neovascular glaucoma is one of the other important cause. You can get following CRVO and CRAO and BRVO, and then retinal artery occlusion, then hypertensive and hepatic retinopathy, yields and sickle cell diseases and other causes. And management depend upon the cause. You have to treat the cause as well as the rise in intraocular pressure. Steroid-induced glaucoma is nowadays is more common, so careful use of steroid and careful watch on the intraocular pressure is very, very important. Retinal detachment, the Schwartz syndrome, you should not forget, is usually a hole. If you close the hole, the intraocular pressure will come to normal. The drug-induced, nowadays we see a lot of topiramate-induced glaucoma. There's, usually they give it for 2 minutes. Topiramate is for angle closure glaucoma, for migraine. They will produce what you call as the bilateral, usually they are bilateral and sudden in onset. They will have a severe headache and redness and pain and blurred vision, and they will come with myopia of 2 to 4 degree diopters, and the angle will be close and without pupillary block. The main cause for the this rise in intraocular pressure is the uveal effusion and the ciliary body edema, and also they say there is some sort of biochemical changes that occurs in the lens that leads to the change in the refractive error, that also constitute for the myopic refractive error. So early recognition is very important. We have to treat them with the steroids and cycloplegics and with anti-glaucoma medications, and PA is not at all indicated. Within 2 or 3 days, it will easily you can treat these conditions. And so, to conclude, secondary glaucoma, a diagnosis, a prompt diagnosis, the accurate diagnosis is very, very important. You have to treat the cause as well as the glaucoma, and of course, the latest advent of antimetabolite and releasable suture and laser suture lysis, implants and laser, etc., has improved the success rate of the secondary glaucoma nowadays. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Radhakrishnan.